have no bandwidth anymore in town.
I don't know it.
I'll talk to you about that later.
Yeah, if you can.
All right, call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Chris?
Here.
Dave?
Here.
Otis? Nancy?
Here.
Chris? I did that. Sally? Thor?
Yep.
Richard?
Okay, I'm proposing to change the order of the public hearing on the agenda to do the PIA last, if everybody's okay with that.
That's great.
All right. Any other changes you guys want to make? Nope. Nope.
Under the consent calendar C,
Okay.
I want to add a acceptance of and scheduling of a public hearing for Albert and Melinda Hopstead for a minor subdivision, the subdivision of Lot 4 of the Evergreen subdivision, to be called the Tangle subdivision. We'll get the wording, but it's accepting and scheduling of a public hearing for a subdivision, minor
Okay.
subdivision.
Anything else? Do we have a motion to accept the agenda as so moved, modified?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Do we have any public comments that are not related to the consent calendar or the public hearings? Not hearing any, let's move on to the consent calendar.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve both items.
There's a third, all three.
All three. Oh, yeah, three, excuse me.
Schedule public hearings for all three.
Yes.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, did you do the minutes?
No, not yet.
Oh, we didn't do the minutes. I forgot about that, sorry. We'll jump back up and do minutes. Do we have any amendments to the minutes from the April 24th meeting? Not hearing any, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I so move.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
So Chris,
yes.
so did you do the consent agenda already?
What?
The consent calendar's been approved?
Yes, we approved all three.
I just wanted to note that Juanita Compton is in the audience with the Realtor, and Juanita's not going to be here for the public hearing when it happens, and her Realtor will probably be speaking for her. That's, just want to let you know.
Okay.
Is that correct? Okay, thanks.
All right, let's move on to B on the public hearings. We have an application from David and Stephanie Owens for a special use permit to allow fill to be placed within the undeveloped portion of the Rambler Street right-of-way at 600 Odin Street. Do we have any public comments on this? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Okay. Do we have, or any discussion on this?
Seems straightforward to me.
Yeah. I think the two conditions are like the only things
Yeah,
relatively minor. If it is wetlands and they're filling it.
yeah. So,
So I guess I'd amend the motion to include the conditions that the Army Corps of Engineers, they talk with them, make sure that if they're filling wetlands, if they need a permit or not. And the second one is that they understand that if someone actually wants to develop the right-of-way, that their temporary road's going to get removed. It has to be improved.
we have a motion to amend it with the conditions?
Also move.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor of accepting the amendment of the conditions?
Aye.
Aye. All in favor of approving the initial motion?
I guess is there any more discussion? I don't know. It seems pretty straightforward. Good deal.
All in favor?
Okay.
Roll call.
Roll call? Yes.
So basically, when we're going to talking about the findings of fact, we're accepting those, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Which the findings of fact do state about the core, the things that Tor just said as far as amendments, right? So they're covered there. So if you accept the findings of fact, then we are accepting the fact that he's got to provide a core permit, and then the conditions, kind of like what I think Carl wanted to express those about if that city ever decides to use that road, so.
Okay.
So I guess the amendment's fine, I gather, but with
Yeah.
the findings of fact, it probably was covered anyway,
Okay.
Redundant.
if you accept
Thank you,
those.
Joe.
Good deal.
Roll call? Karen?
Dave,
Yes.
Tor,
Yep.
Jesse,
Yes.
Chris.
Yes. Okay, we have an application from RPM Holdings for a minor subdivision to create a right-of-way at 151 Mitkoff Highway. Do we have any discussion? Or any public comments? Do we have a motion to approve?
I so move.
Yeah, I'll second.
Here we go. Trying to find the information on this particular one.
Page 34.
34. Okay. We have findings of fact on this one or not? No, that's the variance.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
You all have the letter from Max Peeler that was put in your packets this morning. I was wondering if, since it was late on the agenda there, it just came, if we should read it into the record.
Yeah, it's a revised from the original?
It is a revised letter, right? Correct.
I didn't see that.
We kind of changed a few things, I gather, so if that's with your
Okay.
pleasure.
Volunteer to read it into the
I could if you want.
record? Joe?
Sure.
Thank you.
From RPM Holdings. Dear Mayor Jensen and members of the Assembly, I'm writing this in behalf of RPM Holdings in regard to possible land development for major subdivision. We have a large lot behind the airport along Mitkoff Highway, also known as Libby Strait. We've been trying to figure out how to access this property for possible development. It is apparent that the best way would be to gradually ascent from the pullout just past the cemetery on our way out of town. The borough owns the lot, which is Government Lot 10. We could just go in through the front of our lot, but realized and have been told that that would certainly not be the optimal place to build a road. This is because of how steep the road would have to be and the amount of earth needed to be removed to make this happen. This is why we are requesting the borough establish a right-of-way through Lot 10 to access to our property. We're not asking for ownership, but just to be able to build a road at our expense with all utilities through to the edge of our property and the property of others. We feel this would be a good boost not only to the town economy, but will also allow others to have property up there, the accessibility to their land, which does not exist at this current time. It will also give people the opportunity to build closer to town at an affordable price. On the map I have provided, I've sketched on the proposed road, which is 0.09 miles long. In order to submit an application to the Planning Commission, we need permission of the property owner, that is the borough, before proceeding. We're requesting the borough allow us to submit an application for consideration. Thank you for your time. Max Peeler. Basically what they're asking is before they go through all the work of, and expense of getting a plan together, that you kind of give your blessing to it.
And the borough has approved
Yeah.
this? Okay. Borough Assembly?
It's got to go through you first.
So I think we have a motion on the table. It's been seconded.
Correct.
I don't see any issue with this. I'll call the question if you guys are all okay.
Sure. Aaron?
Howard,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Yancy,
Yes.
Dave.
Yes.
Okay. We have an application from Chris Sargent for a variance to the 20-foot front yard setback requirement and prohibition against enlarging a non-conforming structure at 305 Baranoff. Do we have any public comments? Please step up to the microphone and state your name.
So we're just asking for
Can you state your name, please?
variance for the...
Am I stating your name first?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's Chris Sargent.
Okay. Just for the record.
No problem.
Thank you.
So yeah, we were just asking for a variance for the setback on the property. The way the property is currently set up, the front yard is actually on Baranoff Street, and the front of the house faces that direction. And there is a right-of-way along the side of the house in the corner of the lot that goes between us and the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And I think when we were looking at the permit, and you remind me if this is right, Dan, that it was actually set up as the front yard being that side right away on Marion. And
The way the code classifies that right away is another street frontage, even though it's only a 30-foot easement, so it can never be built to a city standard street. So it will never be a city street, technically. It's more or less a utilities corridor now. So, but the way the coding reads is it's still classified as a street, so it makes that corner lot have two front streets.
Yeah.
Instead of fair enough being the front of the house, and a 10-foot setback on the side, it's actually a 20-foot setback because it's considered two fronts. And that's where the issue is with that. So if it was a 10-foot setback, like in a just typical side yard setback, we wouldn't even need a variance to put the addition on the house because it's still 12 feet. So it would have been within it, but since it's the front, it's already existing.
Are there any utilities on that?
There's water.
the water line. Yeah.
Okay.
And it actually doesn't go all the way through the end of the property. It just comes to the corner of the lot. If you can-
The Kingsley owned lot directly behind the church right there, and there's a shut-off stub out right there from that. And that's as far as that goes. And in talking to Carl, he said that it's under the city's specs for roads, so it'll never be, but if somebody maybe wants to fill it in for driveway access, they might allow that someday. But that's all that can ever be used for. It is kind of unfortunate that the house was built in 1940, so it's an old structure.
Okay, 1912.
It looks like a good spot for the house, you know, before all the property lines and setbacks and all that stuff was a factor back in the day. The house looks really good sitting right here.
Yeah, and because of the angle of the house on the lot, yeah, it kind of angles so that if you wanted to do anything with the house, it kind of faces toward that right away.
And your Baranoff Street comes in, but then the lot angles like a 45 degrees off the Baranoff, and they just put it square to the street, so it looks kind of normal like that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and the other issue with the property and never doing anything with that particular right-of-way is there's a large barn and workshop in the corner of the property, and that already is it's grandfathered in to exceed, it's like 3 feet into the easement as well. So,
Just out of curiosity, what, you adding like a mudroom to the back, or?
yeah, an office, a sunroom, and utility space onto the back of the house is what we'd like to do, and then a deck extending off of that.
I make a motion that we approve this.
Wait, we have a motion.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay, well, I'll call the question.
How about, I did have one clarification, so,
At least I think we have a motion on the table, don't we?
so a non-conforming structure is allowed to continue to exist, but the code currently states that we don't want to add to a non-conforming structure, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And that,
Okay.
The non-conforming structure on the property is the barn and workshop, correct?
actually, the non-conforming...
I wasn't sure if we did or not.
As the
What's
existing
been enough on
house
here?
is within a 20-foot setback already.
Oh, correct. And the fact that this is a non-usable right-of-way makes this case just a little bit more unique than...
Yeah, okay.
And the theory behind that, when it was put in there, and I was talking to Liz, is obviously we don't want to make anything worse than it already is.
Yeah.
And she did talk to the attorney on that one too. And it's another case-by-case basis, I guess.
When was that right-of-way put in? Like a long time ago?
A long time ago.
Has the city considered vacating that right-of-way?
Don't think they would, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, and if you talked to Carl too, is the fact that they wouldn't is because there's the utilities in it.
Oh.
There's some water lines in it and stuff, so...
I did ask Carl about just renaming it, so it's not a street frontage. Maybe it's a utility corridor, because then it's this 10-foot setback instead of 20.
Right.
It's classified as a road, and he said, just go get your variance, it'll be a lot simpler.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
That's what he said.
It would have been a lot of work to go, like Dan was
It's got to
saying.
go through your council.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah,
It's
okay.
a lot more involved process. He said, just pay the $165 and get your variance.
Okay.
So I said, okay, that's how we'll go.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the variance from the 20-foot front yard setback with the conditions and accepting the findings of fact.
But
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none? Aaron?
Chris?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Thor?
Yep.
Okay. A public hearing for the continuation of an application from the Petersburg Indian Association for a variance from the outdoor sign regulations. The variance would allow the installation of a flashing animated sign and also allow it to display messages that are not the name of the business.
The size of the sign.
Okay?
Do you mind stating your name first?
Yes.
The microphone, please. I will. Let's think if I would hang that on the whiteboard.
Gives them a good
Good
idea.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
I have trouble visualizing things, so I wanted to bring you the visual. This is pretty close to the dimensions of the sign. I'm Chris Morrison, council member for Petersburg Indian Association, and I'm hoping that the commission will grant us the variance without too many conditions. I don't know that we know the optimum position for this sign. Some of the council would like to see it higher up on the building. Some would like to see it over the porch. And I think if you could leave the positioning up to us so we could see what an effective position would be for the readability of the sign, that would be my wish. The flashing / animated, yes, it does have the capability of doing that, but that is not our intent. Our intent is to have a static message, several, that will change at certain intervals. I looked at the high school sign. Right now, it transitions, which means that it does like a swipe, a fade, it transitions. We don't foresee doing that at this point. We would just like to have our required by grant message, which is the steps to be tobacco-free, we'd like to have our meeting dates and times up there, and any other special messages, like if we do the pedometer challenge, things like that. We would like to be able to have those types of messages up there. Questions, concerns?
Thanks for bringing in the visual there. That makes it a lot clearer on the size of the sign. That's the total.
79 inches long, 18 inches high. Which is why, personally, I think if we put it high up on the building, it might be too difficult to read. You know, that might be too far. But that was our first choice because of the structure. We knew that we could build something to hold the sign at that point, and above the porch was in question.
Can I say something?
Come on up.
I don't like to be in front of a microphone, but I think there were, oh, I do? Yes. Okay, sorry.
Yes.
Brenda Norheim. And I know that there were some concerns that were brought forth at the last meeting that you had, and I think we addressed all of those. I think somebody had the concern with the sign being too bright and may cause some disruption at the manor, but we talked to Sheelan at Mountain View Manor, and she didn't think it would be a problem at all.
She actually endorsed the idea of the sign. She thought it was a good idea.
And I really think that the flashing animated sign description is very misleading because it's not that at all. In my opinion, it would be no different than the sign that is on the main highway where people are traveling 30 miles an hour, 35 miles an hour on Haugen Drive. So anyway, that's...
I will remind you that sign took a special act of the governor to make it be able to be put there, so that was...
But we did investigate that, and actually, I don't think that was the case.
It had something to do with being in the right-of-way.
Yeah.
Yeah, the state of Alaska has an ordinance against any billboards or signs placed in any state right-of-ways along any state highways.
Right, and the difference with ours is that's not what we're doing. We're attaching it to our own building.
Right. Yeah, no, I understand. But that's a bad example to use as what we want to try and do.
Well, I just was thinking of how it transitions and flashes. I mean,
Right.
it's
No, I
on the same.
understand.
It's not any brighter. We're not talking Vegas.
Yes.
Right.
Sorry. So that's all I had to say.
Yeah, thanks.
I did have one question. Did you have anyone at PIA look at possible positions, or is that?
Jacqueline Lyons was the one that initiated this with the application for the variance, and I've inherited this project from her, and her word to me was that she had talked to a contractor, and he gave her a dollar number for just investigating whether or not the porch would be able to support it, and I think it was $500, and we're going to see if we could avoid that, but without actually getting the sign and trying to do some more investigation as to how visually it's going to be readable from its position. I would just hate to get locked into the porch if, in fact, it would work well up on the side of the building up near the rooftop. I don't think the lighting is going to be a problem. I don't think it's going to be distracting. Sally brought it up at the last meeting. She thought it might even be better safety-wise to have a little more illumination. I know there was the issue was brought up about how often the message would change, and someone mentioned maybe every hour. Some considerably less than that. In the research that I've done, a lot of the changeable message signs, depending on the number of characters you have, how many lines you have, would vary as to an appropriate change time. I think 8 seconds was pretty standard. for messages. The school one changes about every 3 seconds. We can vary that. We can vary colors. We can brighten it, darken it, whatever works. And if we had complaints, we would address those.
Joe, I have a question for you. What would you consider to be not a flashing or animated sign? You know, you've addressed it with people with other signs. What type of interval would you say would be not flashing or animated?
We're back in the, trying to get the definition of animated again, right?
Yeah.
Weren't we at this at the last meeting?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, basically, if it's blinking, it's we consider it animated. Prime example, this open sign that will Rincon, it says open, O-P-E-N,
Yeah.
open, and then it goes up. That's animated in our opinion. The steam coming up the pizza at Papa Bear's, that's animated, So, I guess if it's moving, it's animated.
But if they have a message, say it changes every 10 minutes, that wouldn't be animated? Because to me, it comes down more to the code says animated or flashing is not allowed. So it comes down more to what
the definition
is.
Is more of a scrolling sign than an animated?
Well, I was thinking maybe electric compared to animated, like maybe make that distinction. This is an electronic sign, but it's not an animated one.
And we could have scrolling, but we are choosing at this point not to. We were just thinking static messages.
So this is going away and coming back?
Yes. Yeah, and I have a little document here from the United States Sign Council, and they wrote this as kind of guidance if you're going to be rewriting your sign ordinance, which I understand the borough is going to be doing. I talked to Liz Cabrera about that, and she realizes, there's one provision in the ordinance now that is unconstitutional, so you'll be doing away with that. And I think it's time for the borough to come into current times, which the United States Sign Council points out that many cities are having difficulty with keeping up with technology. And in crafting a new ordinance, they suggest that there may be 4 different levels of types of signs. Level 1 would be static display only. Messages changed with no transition, like the fade or the swipe or the flip. Level 2 is static display with fade or dissolve transitions or similar subtle transitions, and frame effects that do not have the appearance of moving text or images. Level 3, static display with travel or scrolling transitions or similar transitions and frame effects that have text or animated images that appear to move or change in size or be revealed sequentially rather than all at once. And level 4, full animation, flashing, and video like Vegas. And I thought that was a pretty good breakdown of the different types of signs.
And you're going to be at level 1?
Yes, that's what we propose to do.
Yeah, thank you. I did look at this, and that's what I was hoping you were going to say was what you're looking for. The other issue that we were talking about before was how often the display changed. Discussion was that people, particularly if you had it right, that's right on the road right there, right?
Right.
If the message changes every 8 seconds, that might be too fast. And
it might be too slow, actually. If people know that there are more than one message, what I read in this as well was, depending on how often, at what distance they're seeing it, sometimes it's better to have it change faster.
Yeah.
8 seconds can be a long time. If you got somebody sitting behind you and you're waiting to read the next message, it might not work so well.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah, so I think it would depend on how many messages we have as to how often they should change.
I was leaning more for a longer period of time myself, just personally, so that, a person wouldn't have to feel like, well, somebody wanted to stay there and hang out for an hour or something, wait for it to change, that's their business. But that's distracting, and that was a concern that the chief had also. When
Yes.
He addressed it, and that's why, if I recall, that's why we decided to do the check for the alternate placement, so it would be right in everybody's field of view.
But studies have borne out that it really does not cause degradation in traffic safety. There's several items that I forwarded to Liz that address that, and the United States Sign Council also addressed that in a portion of their document. So there's no set rule that would work well for all locations, but I think we could make this work and not cause a traffic jam or people hanging out at the stop sign.
I'm sorry, that brings me back to the sign, and I'm not saying that its location is anything, but the one that the school has, how often does that change?
3 seconds.
So in the timing of the message, I would say that people driving 15 miles an hour down a hill versus driving 35 on the main drag, we don't seem to see a problem there. In my mind, I don't see a problem. I don't know what street we're talking about.
Halcan. Coming down Halcan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just in my way of thinking.
Is this picture that we have here, I don't know if you supplied this one, is this from the stop sign?
I did not supply that one. Jacqueline supplied that one. There, I sent Liz. This is one that I...
That's from the stop sign, okay. Okay, basically the same thing, yeah. It's like, I'm just trying to figure out, there's been talk about changing where the sign goes, and I don't see where it changes much.
Whether it's down low or up high. Yeah.
I think my problem was, when I look at this, your graphic that you have with it placed on the building is quite a bit bigger than this.
Yes.
Quite a bit. This sign is like, it's like 16, well, not 16, but it's probably more like...
The billboard.
Yeah, it's more like 12 by 4.
Yeah, she probably didn't have a CAD program she was looking on. She was just trying to guess, which is why I bring you the sign.
This is a lot different size of sign than what I had here. I looked at this and didn't look at the actual dimensions.
Right.
But the visual of this, I think if you put it up there, you're right. You're not going to be able to see it.
Yeah, I don't think that would be a good place for it. I think it's going to be too far away, but I'd like the opportunity to explore it.
Would it be possible if you wanted to put it along the top of the building, to move it over more above the porch? I'm just thinking, because
I'm not sure. I haven't been on the roof.
The concerns from police and everything else was that having it straight ahead would draw people away from being able to see any side traffic. That's kind of was their concern, was why they wanted it more in the center line of the building. But
well, most people when they go down to that stop sign are looking left anyway.
Yeah. But I'm just going off the letters that we have from them.
Yes.
That was one of their concerns. So
I don't really see that problem, though.
Yeah.
Honestly, you're stopped at this stop sign, you're looking back and forth,
Yeah.
it's in your field of vision.
yeah.
So you're thinking that you're wanting people when they drive by to see more than one message, is what your hope would be?
Yes, we're trying to reach out to the tribe and to the community and keep them apprised of what's going on and what events we have coming up. And, Facebook only reaches so many, the radio only reaches so many, the newspaper, we have people we can't reach because they're not tuned into any of those. And this doesn't help people that shop at Trading Union, but the people that go to Hammer and Recon, sure. GCI, pizza. And if they know that there's something out there, maybe they'll drive by and take a look and see if there's anything that interests them.
Because in my mind, I was making it like, I don't know, whatever it wants to be, a minute interval, is that someone would stop at a stop sign and then read the message. Because I think it is different than the school sign currently, where you're doing one action, you just continue driving. Whereas this, you are stopping at a stop sign. So it's like, it is a little bit different, in my mind anyway, than the other sign.
Well, I would anticipate that as they're coming down, they're seeing things that are going on, they stop at the stop sign, oh, okay, and then they continue on.
Yeah, but then they probably read one message anyway.
If it was on for too long a period of time, yes.
Yeah.
But if things are in people's field of vision when they're driving, they're still aware of traffic around them. I don't think it will be a distraction.
Yeah.
People get used to it, you know.
But I guess my thinking is you're saying they drive down the hill, read one message, then they come to a stop, and then they read the second message?
Depends on how long the message stays on. If it's only 3 seconds, they will be able to get through probably the messages we have and then start over again. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't know that we're going to have that many messages all the time. Sometimes in a year we'll have more. Sometimes we'll just have a couple. Mm-hmm. There's one that we're required to have due to the grant that we received. And so the minimum will be two messages.
It wasn't for the fact of the message that you're required to have, you could have a sign that was just there all the time, but since you have it.
Yeah, it has to change.
Yeah.
Tobacco free, okay, well, that's kind of a waste of the sign. We can do that with a piece of vinyl. But, you know, we're given this sign through that grant, and we'd like to utilize it. And there are apparently animated signs in town already. There's one transitioning sign in town. There are illuminated signs all over the place. They come on and go off.
Well, animated signs are not allowed, and they're
Well,
told, but they make, Joe's had them turn off the animation.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
So we'll turn off the animation.
Mm-hmm. So the way I see it is there's two parts to this question. One is a variance for allowing the animation, which you say you're not really intending to do animation.
Right.
The second part of this is a variance to allow the sign. Right now, there's a requirement that the sign only be used to identify the business in the building.
And that's the
so that's the other
unconstitutional part.
So that's the other part that you're asking for the variance
Yeah,
for.
those were the
From
two.
the current code, the way it is right
Correct.
now. So, any further discussion?
My only concern is I don't have a problem with it. I like it a lot better on the porch of the building, basically because of the concerns of Chris and Kelly in their letters. But, you know, as you said, well, there's this other sign in town, and then we got this sign in town, and that makes it really hard to say no. And what really needs to happen is it needs to be addressed on an ordinance level.
Yes.
And, you know, so so it's clear. My concern is by giving a variance, then we are essentially writing a new ordinance because the next person will come along and say, well, I'm going to put this sign up that advertises hours open, how much a bowl of soup is going to cost. Put it on the side of the building. PIA is doing it, why can't we? And then that's the slippery slope we're in, unless we have a really clear ordinance for us to follow. That's my concern. So, I mean, you know, I know this is a big hassle over one little sign.
Well, this is not
It's a lot of time for you guys and for us.
Well, you think about the cost of soup and the special of the day and stuff like that. That's where you run into the constitutional issues. You cannot dictate what people put on their signs.
Yeah, I understand.
So,
but
you know, that part of it. Now, the animated, and if you want to do this broad definition of animated, then people will still have to come to you. Well, go through the commission until you put something better in place that is more descriptive, or that you at least have a definition of.
Currently, the law states, though, that the signs only used to identify a business. It's the way the code is written right now. And so we would have to give you a variance to do anything different, because that's what the current law says, whether it's constitutional or not. That's the first question part there. Then there's the question of the animated part. So my my personal view on this is to approve the variance to the part that is unconstitutional, and just get that out of the way, and then deny the variance to the animated part of the sign, because the code's very clear about no animated or flashing signs, but you think you can get your message across with not being animated. So.
Right, yeah, it's static, and
So.
the reason that the word animated was even put into the application is because that's the wording in the ordinance.
Yeah.
And that we didn't plan for it to be what we consider animated. It's a static message that changes.
My only question there is, Joe, do you want us to give you a limit of, how many minutes is, how long the message can be up? Or do you is that an enforcement issue where you guys will figure that out?
Why are you asking me that?
So, well, we could just say we deny an animated sign, and then, they put their sign up, and they say, okay, we want to do a transition at, say, 15 seconds. Well, does that qualify as an animated sign? That's an enforcement issue for you.
Again, it comes down to your definition of animated.
Right. Well, there's none in the code.
And then maybe the code should get cleaned up.
Yeah. So.
I think what you're saying is you asked for a definition of animated. Joe didn't give you one. Do you want one?
If it's going to be enforced, you're going to have to give what is animated. Is static changing? Is that animated? Is scrolling animated? Is animated jumping across the screen?
Well, to me, that gets into the whole issue of us passing a rule for what to go to the Borough Assembly of changing the sign code.
Yeah.
And so that becomes another whole thing. In the meantime, it's up to you to do enforcement of what is animated based on.
Well, okay, tell me, this is that it's static, it's different letters. Is the open sign down at Rincon, is that animated? O, P, different letter at different time? That's a static letter, one letter at a time.
Yeah.
And then open, is that animated? In your definition, please.
Well, the definition that I've read for animated is it creates the illusion of movement. So, yeah, if you've got it changing letters, that kind of does create the illusion of movement. But
So
if it's every,
the static message comes one after another, is that creating the illusion of movement?
Yes.
it depends on the interval. That's to me.
Okay, so I'll make a motion. One, that we allow the variance. Let me start over again. Yeah, I'll make a motion that we
should probably do is two motions.
Yes, that's what I was going to do. The first motion is that we allow for the provision that they can display more than the name of the building on the sign. And we will do that one first?
Let's do that one first. Do we have a second? Karen?
Dave,
Yes.
Thor,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Yancy.
Yes.
Okay, the second motion is, and thank you for supplying this. This is a pretty good format, I believe, to start with. The model sign provisions for electronic signs. And I'm going to use a level 1 static display, message changed with no transition. And it calls for a blank in zoning district. I believe you're, C3 where you're at?
I think we're C1. I knew that for the last meeting. I didn't review that.
I just worry we're getting into writing legislation here.
Well, that's fine. That's kind of what we're going to do, and I think we can, but, okay.
I think we're interpreting.
We're interpreting, yeah.
Commercial one.
C1, okay. Electronic message displays may be permitted with the approval of a use permit in C1 zoning districts. All I'm trying to do is just to make this specific to their application and not other entities.
Say that one more time?
Okay. Electronic message, page 13 is what I'm going on for okay. Electronic message displays may be permitted with the approval of a use permit in C1 zoning districts, subject to the following requirements. And then it calls for operational limitations. Such displays shall contain static messages only, shall not have movement, or the appearance or the optical illusion of movement, or any part of the sign structure, design, or pictorial segment of the sign, including the movement or appearance of movement or any illumination or flashing, simulating or varying of light intensity. And then minimum display time. Each message on the sign must be followed for a minimum of, we can put however many seconds.
Are you looking for 8?
They said 8 was optimum. It depended on the size of how many lines, how many characters, what could people read.
And this is going to be a single band of text, right?
Or does yours have 2 lines?
It has the ability to have several different characteristics that will keep the message as short as possible. Obviously, if there are too many characters to put on one, we're going to have 2. The duration of message that was put forth in a document by the Federal Highway Administration, they said duration of each display is generally between 4 and 10 seconds. 8 seconds is recommended. That was for along federal highways.
Okay, so I'll continue. Minimum display time, each message on the sign must be displayed for a minimum of 8 seconds. And then C, 2 alternatives. I like the first one the best. The change of messages must be accomplished immediately. So in other words, there's no fade time, there's no flashing, there's no little guys, no cigarette smoke rising above the quit smoking, no Marlboro Man or anything like that on the sign. Joe?
I got a headache. Can I say something?
Yes.
Without going to that stand, can I say something as Joe Bertignoli?
You have a microphone, so you should be able to.
I will speak, but I'm not speaking from this level.
Representing yourself.
I hear all the talk about, so many seconds and this, and my greatest fear, obviously, and I brought this up, is distraction. I'm the same as a police chief, basically, other than I'm not a police chief. What are people doing reading signs when they're driving? You tell people to not text and drive. You tell people not to check their cell phones and drive. You're supposed to be driving and watching the road and the cars in front of you. We just had an accident up on Haugen Drive. And that was not part of the signs, of course. It was part of the deer. But I'm not paying attention. There's too much not paying attention on the streets, I think, and making things dangerous. So I just... Whether I approved or not approved of that high school sign is immaterial, but I just don't approve of flashing worded signs on the right-of-ways. That's just my opinion, and I said I'm just speaking as Joe citizen here, and that's what I've got to say.
I have a tendency to agree with you. I like the idea of the message changing only at midnight.
And then I
So
definitely
have to go up there at midnight and check it. No, about 2 a.m.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's just for...
I'm of the opinion that at this point, that we deny the variance for the animated sign, and that we take it up further, coming up with a definition of what animated signs are later. Because that would be then cover animated signs throughout the borough, and we have a definition, but you can use it as a static electronic sign.
But that's going to be in code.
But yeah, that would be changing code separately. And I think that's the better way to handle this, rather than going through and doing a piecemeal for one individual sign. We basically say, okay, right now, we're not going to let you have an animated sign, but you can't have an electronic sign because there's nothing in the code that says you can't have an electronic sign. What it comes down to, until the rules are rewritten, is it's a definition of what is enforcement going to say is animated? Until laws are written to help guide them as to what an animated sign is. Thoughts?
So are you in essence saying we're granting them the right to put up that sign?
But it can't be animated, because the code says it can't be animated.
But what they're proposing to do with it may or may not be animated?
Well, that's right now.
That's what I'm...
Right now, it'd become an enforcement issue. Unfortunately, it throws it into Joe's problem of figuring out, because we don't have any definition of what is animated, and he doesn't have a definition to work off of what is animated.
And then does that just come back to us?
It's going to come back to us is to change the code, which is what needs to happen anyway. But that's the best way to do it, because then it affects borough-wide what the definition of an animated flashing sign is. And it's just a matter of inserting that language into the code.
I got one more question.
Yeah.
What happens in the meantime if Joe does an enforcement act? I'm just telling them that their sign's animated. It's got to come back to us. They have to shut off their sign during that whole time?
Well, I think Joe would go up to him first and say, hey, that is to me appearing to be animated, and they would have to change their sign before it even came to us.
I was wondering, Karen and Joe, can we put a timetable on variance? So once, like, we give them permission to, like, let's say, I don't know, every 8 seconds you're allowed to change your sign. You give you the next 6 months when the new borough code is enacted, then we revisit this based on the new code, because it's been written, it's just not approved, and the board is reviewing it.
But have they written the part of the code to talk with a definition of animation? We didn't have that in the code.
Right. Yeah, I assume before it goes before the borough, that they can amend it, I don't know, whatever they can do.
Okay, what about this? What if I withdraw the first A and B, leave my motion as it is, but have the minimum time display be for right now that they can only change the message daily? Then it's not animated, but then they have the ability to do their advertising in their meetings.
We would not be able to do that, because if we can only change it daily and the requirement is that we have to have our required message, then
I think the best way to do it is to deny the variance for the animated sign, and then it's going to be an issue as far as, probably something where you'd have to work out with Joe as to what would be acceptable to be not animated.
Because my take is it's not animated.
Yeah.
It's a digital message. It's a digital sign.
I'm fine with us making a definition today, like 1 minute, if it stays on the screen 1 minute, then it's not animated. If we made that definition today, that's okay with me. Now it's an electric sign. If it's an electric sign by definition by us, if it's on the screen for at least 1 minute. And then
you don't have the distraction issue.
Exactly, because that's in my mind. I know 8 seconds is optimal, but coming up to that sign, I think it's best if people stop at the stop sign, you read your sign, and then they continue to drive.
I think it's a start.
Yeah.
And I think you could expect to see me when you're drafting the new ordinance for, hopefully this information is helpful for you, because there are many communities facing the same issue. And animated, when I first saw that, I thought, no, our sign isn't animated. I don't think we need a variance.
Yeah.
So, bringing the ordinance up to date, I think, is good, and hopefully this information will be helpful, and you can craft something that's intelligent.
What do you think, Joe?
I think we could live with that at the moment. I don't know, a question I have for the commission, and since she's not here, when this came up between that last meeting and this meeting, did Liz talk to any of you about the animation word or the definition? Because I know it was at that last meeting, what was in April, that we had, we talked, and everybody was kind of muddling through, and I think what animation is and such, and so it might need cleaning up in that ordinance, but for now...
What if we go through and we deny the variance for an animated sign, but in doing so, we also say that any sign that displays a message for 1 minute or more is defined as not animated? And that would give you some guidance. It's in there, and then until such a time as the code is changed.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I think it's a compromise for now.
I mean, if what we're trying to accomplish is not having people sitting there at a stop sign waiting for the message to scroll. Most people aren't going to sit there for an hour unless they're really bored. You know, it's easy to enforce. You should be able to accomplish what you're trying to do, and then
And how long of a time frame?
for an hour. In other words,
Then Joe's gonna have to go up there and stand for an hour.
yeah,
If it's like, I think the average time in that intersection is like 20 seconds, you know?
right.
Yeah.
No, I
And so if we do a minute, the person should clear the intersection with one read, you know, and then Joe's up there 1 minute to enforce it.
okay.
Let me up there a little longer, would Jack?
What's that?
I'll stay a little longer.
Okay.
But I think towards compromise is fair, and we can work when we're getting through this, since we're gonna do this, and I'll make notes to put Liz on the animation word when she gets back.
So can I just ask a question
Yes.
too then? And this is not to cause any, but aren't there signs or TV monitors and windows on the downtown storefronts too that change, the images change or messages change? I'm not saying names, but maybe
Maybe,
aware of that too. I mean, because to me then it all kind of falls into the same category. So if we're, talking about cleaning it up, maybe we should look at all.
Just have one of those. I think, yeah.
Just something that I've observed over the years, so.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate what the commission has been working through, and I think that it sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I think we do need to write a code with a true definition in here so that there's something for everybody, enforcement to go off of and for us to go off of. But I think we can do that by writing this in.
This works. I think some of the other stuff we were talking about could have put a sign up there that got shut off.
Yeah.
Because of enforcement issue,
Right.
So,
Okay, so I'll amend my motion to one minute.
One more thought. Yeah, if you want to amend it. But, so then we would be approving the variance, though, in this?
Yes. We would approve the variance. We would approve the variance for the part that says that the sign can only be used to identify the business.
we already did that.
We would deny the part that says the sign can be animated. But we would put in a definition of what animated is, as being a message displayed for 1 minute or more is not animated.
A static message?
Would be considered a static message.
If we go on and use this as a template, on part B where it says minimum display time, each message on the sign must be displayed for a minimum of 1 minute.
I'd rather put a condition on their approval instead of denying the variance.
Well, because what I'm saying is, if we approve an animated sign, then we are setting a precedent that animated signs are allowed in the borough. Whereas if we deny the animated sign, we're saying there's no animated sign, but we're adding a definition of what is an animated sign.
It's the same effect. Either way we do it, but I think approving a variance with a condition and a time frame, like if we say we have to revisit this in 6 months after the, it gives us, if we put the time frame in, let's say 6 months, and we approve the variance, then in 6 months we can revisit this. It's not a permanent thing. If you're saying you're defining it.
Yeah, I'm just saying we put a definition in there, which then gives Joe something to go on for enforcement. Until such a time as we address the issue in code.
What I would foresee is that when you rewrite the ordinance, our sign won't need a variance.
Yeah,
That's
that's what we're trying to do here. So,
Yes.
Joe, what are your thoughts on that?
I guess if you can do that at the stage you're at, if you can make definitions, or if you can define it as
I'm just trying to give you some guidance until we come up with
that'd be
something.
easy enough to do, yeah.
Yeah.
Whether we want to go there, like with this, I like the minute sign. I don't know if could be a sunset clause on a variance. That's a question.
That's the reason why I'm saying if we denied it and we just said for the time being, this is what the definition, what we're going to, the the planning commission is going to say is an animated sign.
Yeah.
And what's a static sign.
You'd have to vote to approve it and then just vote it down. You can't make a motion to deny it.
Yeah.
You make a motion to approve it. then-
Make a motion to
That's
approve.
so you can't vote. But in that note, you could amend it too. You
Okay.
vote to approve it and then amend it to say what Tor was trying to say.
So in other words, we would vote to approve the amendment that's on the table.
Which is
I think
animated
adding all
sign,
the
right?
extra language in there is going to get confusing, whereas what we want to do is just say, very clearly, we don't want animated signs, but a static sign, maybe we do a motion saying that we'll give them a variance for a static sign, and a static sign is defined as message changing no more often than once per minute.
So, I think, like, we have the ability to put a condition on things, but I don't know if we have and that's basically us defining it, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know if we have the ability to deny something and then make a definition.
Yeah.
That's what I'm wondering too.
So I think I'm
trying to figure out the best way to handle this, so.
I think we should, like, in my mind, if we do a motion to approve this, and then we do a condition that it can't change more than a minute, then that's the definition rolled into there.
And can we approve it, make sure we do not include the word animated?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we approve a static sign.
Yeah.
And that a static sign is defined as a sign that
Does not change.
can be an electronic sign, but the message does not change more often than once per minute. Does that sound good to you guys?
And that's what you originally read, is electronic message display you permitted in C1, so I think the format you had is good.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
So just amend it to 1 minute then, and
yeah.
So,
I'd love to hear that.
yeah, what's your motion now, Dave?
All right, I'll start all over again. Okay, Karen, you have page 13 of this?
I don't, you have my...
Oh, I took yours? Oh, thank you. Good, I'll give this to you. So basically, what we're going to do is, the motion is going to be in C1, and reasonable interval.
Do you want to,
Oh, sorry.
just on that, on the zoning districts, why don't we just say in the commercial and industrial zoning districts, because then it covers all of the,
Okay.
yeah.
but again, I don't think, yeah.
Because it's,
I think we should do a case-by-case basis because there is
Yeah.
nothing.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean?
Okay.
They have a special zoning.
This is just trying to get us to where we
Yeah,
change.
we're just-
We give them permission for now, when the new ordinance gets figured out.
Then we can figure it out for more. Okay, so C1 stays, and on Part B where it says, must be displayed for a minimum of 1 minute. And the message change sequence is alternative 1. The change of messages must be accomplished immediately. Okay, and the scratch alternative 2. That work?
And does that works for your, the grant too and everything, right? There's not-
Yes, yes, because then we can do our required, and then we can do, a personalized.
So we have a motion, we need a second.
need a second?
I'll second it.
Karen?
Still writing.
I've got it. Okay. Dave,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Phil.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to non-agenda items.
Thank you for working through that.
Yeah, thank you.
Do we have any commissioner comments?
Thanks, guys. Yeah.
See ya.
No, do we have any staff comments?
This is why I missed Liz.
Yeah.
No, none whatsoever. I'll just have to get with Karen after the meeting and find out what we just did. It's okay.
It's easy.
Yeah.
You have to take a stopwatch up to the sign.
And pot of coffee. Okay, no, thank you for,
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.